Good morning, students. Today we are going to see the general characters and economic importance of the blue-green algae. Blue-green algae are very primitive plants. In the plus 2 classes, you have studied it in the prokaryota. But as per our classification, F.A. Fritsch included blue-green algae in the class Cyanophyceae under algae. So let us study the general characters of Cyanophyceae because they are the first formed photosynthesizing organisms on Earth. So let us go to the details of this particular group and study the type included in the syllabus, that is nostoc. I said it is a primitive group, but it should be in inverted commas because we cannot say a particular group is primitive only because of the structural simplicity or smaller size. This is one of the first formed life forms on the surface of Earth, and it also passed all these years through which the whole diversity of life developed on the surface of Earth. So the cyanobacteria also have a history of long evolution. So we cannot say it is very primitive or without any evolutionary adaptations. It has its own way of evolution. I would like to stress this point in this class because we are going to study the diversity of life, evolution in the next semester. So we should understand how the diversity is formed due to divergent evolution. We consider evolution in the form of a tree where the branches arise from the very base itself. On the top of the plant, it may be human beings or orchids, but there are branches in the lower portions also. They are also rebranching, and what we see today as organisms on the surface of Earth are at the tip of one of the branch. So cyanobacteria is also at the tip of a branch of evolution. So this is the concept of tree of evolution. So it is primitive in the cellular structure, nature of reproduction, complexity of cells, or structural organization of the cell. But we cannot say it is primitive. It is simple in its own way. The cyanobacteria comprise about 150 genera and around 2,500 species. In India, about 98 genera are reported and there are about 833 species. They are known by different names. As I mentioned earlier, they are called as blue-green algae. They are also called as Cyanophyceae. Fritsch called them as Mixophyceae. All these names are attributed to this particular group based on one or other character. For example, the term Cyanophyceae is derived from the unique pigment present in them, which is phycocyanin. And the phycocyanin has a tint of blue color and green color. So it appears sometimes in blue color or in green color. So it is called as blue-green algae. In addition to this particular phycocyanin, there are phycoerythrins, beta-carotene, and the common chlorophyll A molecules inside the cyanophycean cell. So we can say this class is the group of simplest autotrophic prokaryotes. The phycocyanin is a unique pigment. The structure is illustrated here. We are not going to the details of its biochemistry, but it is very economically important. Phycocyanin is commercially extracted from a cyanobacterium called spirulina, and spirulina is considered as a nutraceutical, where its products, cellular products, are nutritionally and pharmaceutically important. There are many products, nutraceutical products, commercialized in India, and these are some of the examples for them. So let us see what are the characteristics of this particular group. First of all, Cyanophyceae are prokaryotes. What is a prokaryotic cell? A prokaryotic cell is a cell without a well-defined true nucleus. The genetic material is DNA, which is associated with proteins and seen in the center of the cell as nucleoid. So it is devoid of a nucleus. These organisms are formed on Earth before the evolution of a true nucleus. So they are known as prokaryotes, meaning before the formation of nucleus. And the organisms with a true nucleus are called as eukaryotes. From Protista onwards, organisms are eukaryotes. Again, the cells do not have well-organized cell organelles. The mitochondria is not there. Instead, in bacteria, mesosomes are present. Since it is a photosynthesizing autotrophic organism, respiratory activities are very less in this particular Cyanophycean group. Similarly, all other cell organelles are either absent or differ very much from those in the eukaryotic cell. For example, the ribosomes are 70 S ribosomes in prokaryotic cells. There are no well-defined plastids or chloroplasts, but the photosynthetic pigments are seen as thylakoids just below the plasma membrane. So these are the major differences between a prokaryotic cell and a eukaryotic cell. Here, the cyanobacteria are typical prokaryotic cells. So it was Christensen grouped all these prokaryotic organisms under one roof with the name phylum Prokaryota. But we know the five kingdom classification group all these prokaryotes under the name kingdom Monera, as you have studied in your plus 2 classes. Since Christensen considered it as a particular phylum, the cyanobacteria or Cyanophyceae were renamed as Cyanophyta, and they are also called as cyanobacteria, considering their close relationship with bacterial cells. So what are the general characters of cyanobacteria? Yes, they are prokaryotic, nucleus is incipient, and they lack membrane-bound cell organelles. Flagellation is completely absent in prokaryotes. Flagella are not seen in the Cyanophyceae, although the bacteria, there are some ciliate forms. The cell wall is made up of microfibrils, and we can differentiate 4 layers in the cell wall of cyanobacteria. The cell wall is composed of mucopeptides along with carbohydrates, amino acids, and fatty acids. Locomotion is completely absent, but there are some jerking movements or gliding movements can be observed in some members. The major pigments are chlorophyll A, phycocyanin, phycoerythrin, beta-carotene, etc. Xanthophyll-like substances like mixoxanthophyll and mixoxanthin are also seen. The membrane-bound chromatophores are absent. The pigments are located in the thylakoids. The reserve food materials are Cyanophycean starch or Cyanophycean protein granules. So this is the most important economically important nutraceutical products found in the Cyanophyceae members. One of the characteristic feature or a unique feature of cyanobacteria are the presence of heterocysts in the filamentous forms. Regarding the role of these heterocysts, there are disputes, there are very different opinions, but many of those heterocyst carrying filaments are nitrogen fixing. We cannot trace a close relationship, correlation between the heterocyst and nitrogen fixation, but most of the nitrogen fixing bacteria have heterocysts. Reproduction takes place by vegetative and asexual methods. Vegetative methods are the fragmentation, cell division, etc. And asexual reproduction is by akinets, endospores, nanospores, and exospores. Sexual reproduction is completely absent, and genetic recombination mechanisms are observed in very few forms. Regarding the habitat, Cyanophyceae are seen on different habitats such as terrestrial condition, freshwater, and also some are marine. The common genus Oscillatoria is a freshwater cyanobacterium, and Trichodesma is a marine blue-green alga. Oscillatoria and nostoc are also seen in the terrestrial conditions also. Another unique feature is the growth of some of the cyanobacteria in symbiosis with higher plants. For example, Anabina is seen in the thallus of Anthoceros in symbiotic association for nitrogen fixation. It is also seen in Azolla, and nostoc is seen in the roots of Cycas. In fungi and lichen also there are some symbiotic Cyanophycean members are seen. The nitrogen fixing species such as nostoc, Anabina, etc. can fix nitrogen and increase the fertility of the soil. Regarding thallus organization also there are differences. There are unicellular forms, filamentous forms, and colonial forms. Actually, the filamentous forms are colonial forms where the cells are attached end to end. Normal colonies are also seen in Cyanophyceae. Many of the colonial forms form colonies which are three-dimensional in the shape of a ball by the division of cells in all dimensions. But the filamentous forms are formed by the division of cells only in one plane, forming a long thread-like filament. Both the colonies are covered by a mucilaginous sheath, and the filaments may contain trichomes, one or more trichomes. The filaments may be unbranched, branched, or falsely branched, as in Cytonema. You can see the diversity of thallus structure in this figure, and you have also seen the videos in which the diversity is clearly shown. Coming to the reproduction, blue-green algae reproduce by vegetative and asexual methods. Vegetative reproduction is by fission, fragmentation, hormogonia formation, hormospores, planococcei, and pamelloid stage. During asexual reproduction, various types of asexual spores are formed. These are akinets, endospores, exospores, and nanocytes. So different kinds of asexual spores are formed in the case of cyanobacteria, and asexual reproduction is the much elaborated type of reproduction. These are different types of spores such as homospores, akinets, nanocytes, exospores, endospores, etc. And in the figure A, the binary fission is shown. One of the most interesting physiological feature of cyanobacteria is the complementary chromatic adaptation. The complementary chromatic adaptation is also known as the Guideco phenomenon, where the cells have the capacity to change its color due to the variation in the pigments. And this variation in the pigment is dependent on the type of light which is available to the colony. Depending upon the wavelength of the incident light, they change their color and adapt it to maximum absorption of light. This phenomenon is called as Guideco phenomenon because it was discovered by Guideco in 1903. Coming to the origin of Cyanophyceae, this is one of the most primitive land plants or land organisms. They are without locomotion, there is no flagella, there is no sexual reproduction, there is no cellular complexity. So all the characters indicate that they are one of the first formed cells on the surface of Earth. And it is estimated that they are formed during the Precambrian period. There are some characters which indicate their affinity to the bacteria. At the same time, there are some other characters which are closely related to the Rhodophyceae or red algae. The bacterial characters are the prokaryotic nature, non-locomotory cells, vegetative reproduction, absence of sexual reproduction, cell wall formed of mucopeptides or murine. For example, Oscillatoria shows close affinity with Beggiatova, which is a sulfur bacterium. And another feature is that the Cyanophyceae are very sensitive to many antibiotics. The nitrogen metabolism and sulfur metabolism of both Cyanophyceae and bacteria are closely related. And the genetic recombination mechanism observed in Anacystis nidulans shows close affinity with that of bacterial recombination. Coming to similarities with Rhodophyceae, there are three critical points to mention. One is the absence of motile forms. In both in Rhodophyceae and Cyanophyceae, there are no motile forms observed. Second is the pigmentation. The pigments phycocyanin, phycoerythrin are present in Cyanophyceae. They are called as C-phycocyanin and C-phycoerythrin, and its counterparts R-phycocyanin and R-phycoerythrin are seen in Rhodophyceae. So in the pigmentation of both the groups are closely related. Strychnium and some other forms of Cyanophyceae have pit connections, and this character is also related to Rhodophyceae. In other groups of algae, such connections are very rare. Coming to the economic importance, nostoc is used as a food and fodder. The nostoc soup is used in China. Many of these cyanobacterians are used in the reclamation of soil due to their activity of nitrogen fixation. About 22 filamentous cyanobacteria are found to be actively fixing nitrogen. All these forms have heterosis. That's why the role of heterosis in the nitrogen fixation is hypothesized. But there are some members such as Plectonema in which heterocysts are not seen, but they are nitrogen fixing. Coming to the harmful activities, the Cyanophyceae are the first autotrophic organisms to inhabit a bare land. So many Cyanophycean members can damage building, plastering, stones, etc. Many of them cause algal blooms just like unicellular red algae, and they are responsible for the toxicity of streams and water bodies where the O2 depletion takes place. They also contaminate large water bodies such as dams, and some gastric problems may arise if the drinking water is contaminated with such cyanobacteria. So let us see a video on nostoc, which is a typical cyanobacterium. We have to study nostoc as a type, that we will see in the next class. Thank you.